this is kind of like the list of things I've just been keeping up there about some of the issues that people have over the years that I've kind of just helped most clients with. And the top one is always reconciling AP and AR to the GL, or that you're spending too much time in the in reporting. Okay, so you're doing financial statements outside of Financial Edge, and you're using Excel to do all of those things. That's something that I just think that is really a waste. I mean, unless you have some real complex financial reports that Financial Edge really can't do, then fine. But I always don't want you to go to Excel unless you've exhausted all the options or the opportunities that are available within Financial Edge. Bank reconciliations, I know those could be a big hassle. I think that's how I lost most of my hair when I was doing all bank recs from all those years. But I am good at it now, even though I don't have to do it anymore. So grant reporting is another big item that if you have lots of grants, I worked for an organization that was 99% government funded, and I was audited on a monthly basis. I had to do reports. There were lots of things. If you missed last week's or last session that we had, which was projects, which I'll do again in the fall series. But that's a great way to set up grants and set up controls in there so that you can feel confident that when you're doing a report for a grant that's due, you're not spending days and days trying to figure out what belongs in that grant and what doesn't. Okay, and then allocations and distributions. I can't tell you how many people do those outside the system, even if they have the allocation management module. So it's one of those things that if you need help with that, let's connect so that we can get you there. Okay. My funny one is always Razor's Edge and Financial Edge are not integrated. But if they are, that's great, and you're using it, that's great. But my joke is always, RE and FE integrate. Do y'all? Does your finance department talk to the development department? And I cannot tell you how many times the answer is no. And so we need to fix that, right? I mean, that's wrong. To do double entry work is just not a good use of anybody's time. And especially in the nonprofit world, we know that my old CEO would always say we have to do more with less, and which really just means that you're not going to pay me more, but you're expecting me to do a lot more work. So here's where that you can clean up some of that, shave some time off so that you can do some of that additional work. And then last but not least was the staff turnover. Obviously there's always a transfer of knowledge, and usually when someone wants to leave an organization, they don't really care to teach you everything. They just want to teach you and get out. So if you have that in your organization, it's worth it to take a class either at Blackbaud, or you could hire me to help you train on your system specifically, all those things. And I'll say this later on too, we also have Razor's Edge consultants available too that are similar background, well, similar in terms of expertise, that are available to help you navigate through Razor's Edge if there are some issues there as well. Okay. All right. The next thing, so I always like to open up with questions to see if there's anything out there that you want to go through. So if there is, I mean, just to let you know, if you don't, I'm going to go through the budgeting process. But I'm totally open to, I really would rather this be a conversation, but it's becoming more of like a training. But please interrupt me. That's what you're here for, like to ask questions. This is free consulting. Tell me what, even if it's an issue that you've had with Blackbaud and you've called support, and I know how sometimes support can be a hassle, use me. If you have other not clients, but colleagues that are going through that, it's worth to just start a conversation with me. And if I can't help you, then I'll at least point you in the right direction. Okay. So I'm just going to look at my chat here if there are any questions. Anything? All right, so lots of introductions. That's great. Thank you so much. All right. And by the way, if you do have a question, just unmute yourself and just interrupt me. This isn't formal. Okay. All right. Anything out there? Nothing burning? Okay. We can be shy, I get it. And if you do, don't worry about it. You can still email me your question and I will help you. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just begin sharing my screen. Let me just minimize this. Okay. So what I wanted to do today is go over the process of which that we go through budgeting, if you will. Okay, so I am in the database view, and I'm going to stay in here, even though I'll show you some stuff in the NXT view as well. But really, what I wanted to show you here is, most of you should be familiar with this view. And there's also an Excel add-on that I want to show you. So, and maybe I'll start off with there. You can see here that, under records, I've got records in the general ledger, and I've got my budgets, and these are all the budgets that are available for you to begin to look at. You can see that these are all these scenarios. What I love about the scenarios is that, again, I'm going to use my experience as a guide here, that we always have different versions of our budget, right? There's a first budget that is the approved budget, and then throughout the year, you might make updates. In my case, we used to call them budget modifications, because we would either gain new grants, or we would lose grants, or whatever, new employees, people leaving. There's always money left over. There's always money to reappropriate it, I should say. And so the budgeting module allows you to do that. And one of the things that I want to just show you immediately is, I'm just going to open up my Excel document here. And I already tested it earlier so that I wouldn't have to log in again, but sometimes you know how these systems can get finicky. But there is a tool here. Now notice on my Excel, it says create budget. This is a link that, or an API that was created with Microsoft, that allows you to pull a budget from Financial Edge into Excel. And if you don't have it, I can let you know how to get it. It's free. It does need to be turned on from the NXT view first. But once it is turned on, you can just go to, in your Excel, go to insert, and then go to get add-ins. And if you're following here, all I have to do is type in Blackbaud, and I'll see all the APIs that have been created. Okay, and so there's one here, and you just click add, and as soon as it adds it, it'll show up on your I guess your top menu here on the Excel. Okay. All right, and so now what I'm going to do here is, you can see here now, if I wasn't signed in already, I signed in before the call so that I didn't have to do that. But if I click on that button, I automatically get this preview, if you will, and I can either create a new budget, or I can edit an existing one. So I can click on here to edit an existing one. I guess it did sign me out. I just did it a few minutes ago, so clearly it didn't like me to wait. But anyway, you sign in, and then you've got an opportunity here. I am gonna just, I'm gonna have to choose my, where's my impact? Here it is. Okay, authorize, you have to authorize which database you want to do if you have multiple. And then once it's in there, I can go in here and click on fiscal year. Oh, come on. It's going to totally make me look like a liar. I'm going to just try it again. All right, this is better. All right, so you get to choose the fiscal year, and then I get to choose which scenario ID. Right now, I just have this one, and I hit continue. And what that will do is, notice that it just reached out to Financial Edge, and it pulled my budget into this Excel document. All right, now what I like about this is that, when you're doing a budget, chances are you're doing a budget for multiple departments, and you need input from those people, from those directors. And either you can give them access to Financial Edge and give them a little bit of training about how to update these budgets, or you could use this feature, which is what I would use, is you could pull it out. This is the budget for this particular year. You can send it to them. You could also, you could use Excel now here to sort it in a way that makes sense. So if you are using the project field in Financial Edge, you can sort this by the project field and maybe create different pages where you can send them all to people, and then just send them their version of it, or just the version that is applicable to their projects. And then once it's in Excel, they can go ahead and just start making changes if they want, right? They can potentially just put in the budget here, the total column, and then they can distribute it any way that they want. if there's some cycle that your business is following, then that would be the way that you would, manage that. And then honestly, it's just a matter of like sending it to them. They can also use these notes. I love this notes field because, people always want to know, why are you making this decision? This is great to have this in here. It's in the system, accessible to all people. So why not have that versus like an email? Hey, I need this because of this. That email's great. You have authorization, you have an audit trail, but it's a difficult audit trail. Whereas if it's in the notes here, it's all there. Anybody that looks at it has access to it. Okay, so the point is that they can make these changes right in this Excel document. You don't have to give them access to this API. We can lock it down, but you could potentially just give them access, and then they can hit submit, and they can also just add on new accounts at the bottom, and distribute it, and then hit submit. Or they could make the changes, email it back to you, and then all you have to do is copy and paste into this area here, hit submit, and then your budget in Financial Edge automatically gets updated. So really cool thing, because again, I was 99% grant funded, and I had maybe a dozen directors that were managing each grant, or all the various grants, and so it would be so easy for me to just go ahead and say, hey, Stephanie, this is your pile of programs. Go ahead and look at them, make your budget, send it back to me when you're done. Give me your notes, so that there's no question. If there's a question, you come ask me, but otherwise all your answers are going to be here. Okay, great way to manage that from that perspective. The next thing that I want to show you is this, is that I'm going to go back to my, before I go, wait, one more thing. I want to do this. So if, let's say I create another page here, okay, and I'm going to do this again. All right. And I want to just show you how easy it is to just copy and paste. Notice down here in this Excel, I still have this final one that I just exported. So I'm going to go to this new page. And again, I'm going to say edit existing budget. And I could have done the create a new one if I wanted to, but I'm going to do this one. And now this time, let's say I want to do the 22 budget, and I'm going to say continue. And right now, this budget is something I created earlier. I don't have anything in here, but this is what I mean about if once you're ready to get everybody's results back, so they'll send you a sheet like this, right, with all the notes and all of that. And all I have to do is just literally go like this, copy, and then come in here, and then paste. And that budget now is in this fiscal year 2022. Okay, I can, and again, make these changes. If there were notes in here, you'd see the notes, but it's that simple to hit submit and let it go through. Okay, great way to manage a budget. The next trick that a lot of people don't always realize what they need, what they can do in Financial Edge, and this feature is only available in the database view. It's not available in NXT yet, but I love it. I think it's great. I used to use it all the time. So let's just say, for example, notice on the bottom here, I have two final scenarios for budget 2021 and budget 2022. So let's say now right now, I think this budget is in, I don't remember this fiscal year, if it is, if it's calendar or July, but it doesn't matter. What I wanted to just kind of show you how cool this is that you can do a couple of things here. So let's say right now we're in the month of May, right? For example, and I want to do some forecasting. Let's assume that it's that this is let me just check real quick just so that I do this right. Fiscal year, we are in. Okay, so this is January. Okay, January to December. Perfect. Okay, we'll go back. Okay, and I'm here. So let's say now we're in the month of May, and our fiscal year started in January, and my boss wants to see how we're going to end up at the end of this year. And so this forecasting feature allows you to, for example, and you can name this anything you want. Like again, these are named final, but I would probably have another scenario that's called forecasting, so that I could say, okay, well, this is what this is my best guess about how we're gonna end up. And so what I can do now is I can take this budget, which is the one that is the one that's in existence, if you will, right? I can open it up, and there is a budget tool here. Click on budget tools. And if you can see this, it's very small, forgive me. It says copy forecast budget. So I can take this number now. I can say, now I could do one of two things. I can copy the 21 budget into 22 and keep it in there and make some changes, or I could use this forecast feature. And if I go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to forecast, I'm going to say next. This is just a filtering option that gives me an opportunity to limit the information that I want to copy. But let's just say I want to keep it all the same. I can say next. And now this is where the magic happens, if you will. It says here, select, the step 3, which is select a scenario, a source scenario. Okay, well, I want to use the 21 in there, and I am going to, decide on which scenario I want to put this in terms of my destination. So my scenario destination is going to be the same, and I'll keep it the same for now, final. And then the fiscal year is going to be 2022. Okay, and this is the part where you have options. What do you want to copy? Now, I can say that I want to copy the budget from period 1 to period 12, and it would copy everything that I have in that one into the new one. Really simple to do. And then I can go into the new one and make some changes. So that's one way to do it. But if I was doing forecasting, I might say, what I really want is that we're already 4 months or 5 months into the fiscal year, and I want to say, you know what, I want to take into account things that I've already actually bought from period 1, from January through period 4 or 5. We're early in May. All right, there's not a lot of data in there anyway, but let's just say I want to take into, I want the computer to know what I've done already, what I've paid for, and then I want to forecast the remaining budgets. So this is really cool because now it'll give me a budget based on what I've actually spent. And there are some algorithms in there that will do this math for you. It's not going to be, human proof, if you will, because you will have to go in there and have to make a decision about certain things that only you would know. The computer might not know that. But if I just click next, it'll give me another opportunity, and then copy forecast. And now it will take into account all the actuals, and then it'll forecast the remaining budgets, the remaining, in this case, 7 months. Okay, it'll go through that. We'll let it finish through that. And then once it's in there, again, now you have another opportunity. You can dump it back into Excel, send it to people. You can also just open it up and just see, okay, you know what? There was some actuals that weren't, there were some budget items that you didn't use up the budget, and the computer might assume that you're not spending on that line, but in fact you are. But what happened was the bill hasn't come in yet, or the event hasn't happened yet, or something like that. You can go in there and then manually adjust it. Okay, I'm not going to view the report, but it did process. I can close this, and I'm going to just close this, and then you can see here 2022. If I open it, I should see. Oh, of course not. I might have closed it real quickly before I saved it. I'm sorry. Is this 20? Yeah. Okay. Let's assume that this is the 2022 that it's updated. It's going to look like this. I should have waited a moment and hit save and close, and I didn't. But the point here now is that if it's in here, once it's in here, you can go ahead and make some changes. So if you notice that some of them are going to be zeros, and you know for a fact, and by the way, let me change this so that you can see the account descriptions. So if there's some account descriptions that you're looking at and you're thinking, oh, this was my budget last year, this is only gonna spend $929, but I know for a fact that it's gonna be higher, and I didn't get a bill yet in the first 5 months, and that's why the system, gave me such a low budget number, because it just assumed that, you know what, since you didn't have any, you're not gonna have any. But again, those are some of the things where you do need some human interaction, but it will help you if you have 1,000-line budget and you can't make those decisions 1,000 times. This is a great, way to start, right? And then just look at the lines that are critical, like salaries, or things that that we're going to glare at you and say, okay, I know that this is going to be okay, or this one's not, this one's this, and so on and so forth. And again, this is an opportunity. If you dump it back into Excel and send it back to the directors, they can make those decisions for you. Okay, with the notes, all of that will be available, and then you can put it back in here. And once it's in here, it'll automatically be on your financial statements. Okay. Another thing I want to show you here is this. is, and this is also available in the NXT, is that, for example, if I looked at one particular line here and notice that it's distributed, right, you can see here that it's period 1, period 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth through period 12. And it looks like it, well, yes, it's distributed evenly is what it looks like. But let's just say this was like a quarterly number that I wanted. Maybe salary is not the best example, but the easy thing to do is, I mean, I can go into each one of these periods and update that amount, or I can just highlight the line or several lines and say, you know what, these should not be distributed evenly. They should be distributed quarterly. I can click on here and say load budget distribution, and I can set up a new distribution. Like, for example, there's an add new button here. I can add it and just, I don't know, call it, I think some of them are already in there, bi-monthly, but I'll just put a little one in there. But the point is that I can now put some percentages here. I can skip some months and 40%. I mean, my naming isn't right, but ultimately what we want is for it to total 100% down here. And so now what this will do is I've selected this. I say, okay, now I've created this distribution that's available in the system next time I come in. And now I can notice in the background that they're still highlighted. And then if I find my bi-monthly one, click that and hit select, it's going to take those distributions after a minute. All right, it's a little slow right now, but there it goes. Okay, there it goes. I'm just impatient. I want so notice here now, there's the 0 on those months, and then those percentages that I put in that were random in the periods that I need them to. Okay, so that's really easy. That's a great way to distribute your budget. And so with these distribution tables, I mean, of course, you can do quarterly and monthly or bi-monthly or semi-annually, whatever. You can do that. But what I really want you to think about is every business has a cycle, right? I mean, if you're doing an event on the 3rd month of your fiscal year, and that's a big fundraiser for you, and that means there's going to be a lot of expenses during that time, there's going to be lots of revenue during that time, you can go ahead and create a distribution that will allow you to distribute that money that way, so that when you're looking at financial statements, they're making sense. It doesn't look like, oh my goodness, like you overspent on your budget. Well, I overspent because all the expenses happen in the month of May. I'm not going to have any more throughout the year. So that's that would be a way for you to explain it. And for me, that's key when you're presenting a budget to actual to your finance committee or your board. Those are the first questions they ask. They want to see percentages. Why are you over on your percentage? Or if you do it by month, there's going to be that issue about how are you going to present that to make it look like this is a complete story and it doesn't look like you've overspent. So those are things that I say, like when you use this function and you use the percent variance on your reporting, that will allow you to, kind of say a good story. And really stories in the financials, as long as they look at them, they can see, okay, well, this is it. I understand this because there's no more budget left because now we're done. The expenses are complete. Okay. That will really help you explain all of that. Okay. All right, I'm going to just pause for a moment and give people an opportunity just to ask a question or change direction or something related to that. And again, you could unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it in the chat and I will get it. All right, cool. Remember, you could still email me later if you have questions. I'll be glad to go over any of this with you again. And by the way, we will also provide you with a link to this recording, and so that if you do want to listen to it again and follow the steps, you can do that. Okay. All right. I'm going to save and close. I do want to just show you before I there's a question. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Cool. All right. I do want to show you. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me just, I'm going to have to log in because I think I got logged out. Just give me 1 second here. It's funny, I always log in and all these things before my call, but I don't know why. It just seems like it always logs me out when when I'm actually performing. When the camera's on. So, all right, so I am waiting here. No, I don't want to do that. I have to move these. Okay. I do just want to show you that even in the NXT view, that same concept is available. Whereas if I go to General Ledger and then I go to my budgets, so what you can't like, I'll just wait a minute to show you those
We did
tools
have
that.
a question come in
Oh,
from Michael.
hi,
And
Michael. Yep.
he's saying, I have my budget detail in Excel down to monthly by project. At what detail level should I be entering the numbers into the system for the budget year?
Always per account. So for example, and let me open up this one right here. And this is similar to the same view. Oh, wait, are my numbers on here? Are they showing up? Oh, I know what it did. Okay, so that feature earlier, it did work. I didn't hit save and close. I think it's because I don't have any data in January through May in this sample database. That's why it went 0, which is actually, you know what? This is perfect example of how that works, because I asked it to forecast the remaining budget years. And so because the actuals were all 0, it just said, I wasn't going to do anything because look, I think, yep, they're all zeros. So Michael, to answer your question, you can see here that, I don't know where your account number is, but your account number is generally made up of some segments, and it might have 3 or 4, I'm not sure, or might just have 2. And then you might have your project or your fund, I don't know how you would call this, but here's that program segment or that project segment. And then if I hit edit here, I could, and you can see now it almost looks like an Excel document, but I can go here and put in the total of a particular amount. Let's say I'll just put in 20,000 or whatever, 200,000. And now you see this little thing here. This is where if I want to distribute it, I can click on this. Distribute. And I could do evenly, or I could do by percentage, or I can apply the budget distribution. And there's my bi-monthly one that I had created from the database view. I can click on that and select. And now you can see that it distributed based on those percentages that I put on that table. Okay. So in answer to your question, Michael, I think people always, the one thing that people, I think when they first get Financial Edge, usually the budget issue that I run into with people using other kinds of software is that there are what would be called a category, and that's a little bit confusing. So if you come from an organization where you're just you have a salary line, one salary line that's called salaries for something, but in Financial Edge, you can see that you can have many salary lines because they could be by department depending on what your segment is. And so what might happen, or even let's take office supplies for example, or better yet, like for example, you might give someone, a director, a budget of $100,000, and maybe the organization doesn't really care how they spend that 100,000. And so sometimes the people that are doing those budgets, they're like, okay, well, I just want to keep my 100,000. But in Financial Edge, you do have to put it on a particular line item. And that can cause a little bit of confusion because if, for example, because you want to put that budget number in there, let's just use that 100,000 as an example. If you put it on one line, when that person looks at their budget, they're going to see, oh, look, my office supply says $100,000. But you know what? I need money in marketing. I need money in this. And they didn't know the breakdown at that point. And they just know that, hey, I want some of that 100,000. But if you don't know that, where are you going to put it? And other software had I guess categories where you could just put a category in, and then there could be lots of accounts within that category. And so then you can see that, budget to actual depending on, based on that category. But in Financial Edge, you do have to do it by line item, by account, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for you. And I think to me, it's only difficult in the beginning when you're first doing your first budget, because next year's budget, if you've already been using Financial Edge, why don't we use the actuals as a guide for this year's budget? So that people, when they're looking at it and they say, oh, you know what, last year I spent this amount of money on office supplies, and maybe I'll do the same amount because I do kind of need those things every year. And it just makes them be more responsible for their budget versus just getting $100,000 and deciding where and when they're going to spend it as it comes up. Again, budgeting is supposed to be a tool to help you plan your expenses. And so to the extent, I might have sounded negative that with Financial Edge, you have to do them by line, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I would do them otherwise, because I want people to think at that level. And, but again, some organizations are different. I like that part of it because I can see what I spent last year. I can see my actuals, and then I can make a decision, an informed decision about how I'm going to move forward this year. So, and that's what that means. But now, however, I will say this, there is something that you can do if you're familiar with the visual chart organizer. There is an opportunity there that we can create a financial statement with the categories that have all of the accounts in there. And so, and what we could do is we can put the budget into one of those numbers, but not show that number. And in the visual chart organizer, kind of present it in a way that it makes sense to them by category. So if you really wanted to do that, we could do that via this feature, and I've done that for other people, and it looks great. The only thing that it'll start get messed up is that if they want to see detail, again, they'll see that picture that I described earlier, where there's going to be one line in salaries and then and one line in benefits, but you won't see how much you've spent on, how much the budget is for, 401k or your, unemployment taxes, any of that stuff. You won't have that detail as a comparative the way, online by one line by line. Okay. So get into the habit, I think, is doing it this way, because Financial Edge is this way. So we might as well start getting used to that. And so to the extent that you can do that, I would, recommend that you start thinking about it that way and using your actuals as a guide for next year's budgets. Okay. All right. Okay. Now I also wanted to show you here that if I did, I'm going to just put another number in here. And here. Okay, I could also, nice little tools here. I can just click on the ones that I want to distribute. I can click on these, right? Like if these three are the ones. It's extremely slow, but if I want to distribute, I have that same button that I had on the the database view, apply evenly, right, by percentage, or I can do budget distribution, and then I can pick from the list if I want to do monthly or quarterly. Let's choose quarterly for now. Select. And now you can see that my budget is distributed from that perspective. Okay. And again, once this is saved, I could use the Excel feature, dump it into Excel, massage it, manipulate it, do whatever you need to do with it, and let it come back in here. And then once it's in here, then you'll be able to use it in the reports as an updated number. And I'm going to cancel here. I'm not going to save anything. From the reporting perspective, and this is something that we're going to spend a day on reporting. Maybe it might be my next section, the next webinar that we're going to do in 2 weeks, is spend some time on reporting. And the concept of the scenarios, this is where it plays an important role, is that I've had people do many scenarios, and it can be a little bit confusing because it's a powerful tool. But what we want to always do is that each scenario has a budget within a specific fiscal year. So, for example, if your scenario budget, in this case, it's called final, or you might use the board approved or main budget or whatever. What will happen here is if I go into like an income statement, I'll try this one. I'm not going to run anything in here, but I want to just show you how, when you're creating the financial statement, notice here that you've got your opportunities to choose the content, which is really the date, right? These are the columns, right, that appear on a particular report. Like, you'll notice here that you could use what are called smart dates. So I'll go ahead and hit edit here just so that you can see it. And if I click on one of these columns, you can see like these are smart dates, right? If you're not familiar with this, what's nice about this feature is that if you set it to this fiscal year or this fiscal period down here, it'll always move with you, right? So we're in the month of May, so we know that for a fact that this is the month of May, and you can see here that this is going to give you values for that. But if I chose, more typically you might choose last fiscal period, for all your reports. And now it'll be the previous month, right? In this case, April. And so each month that you move forward, all these financial statements get updated. So you don't have to go in there and update all these columns. And it's the same thing with the, like for instance, this variable that's chosen here is actual. So this is going to be taken into account actual data. But if I wanted to clear this and insert a variable, and this time I would choose like the original budget, I might say, you know what, I'm going to choose that final one and then add to definition. So now this is the budget that's going to get included in here, and that, or I should say the scenario. And then my dates down here is going to control which budget I saw, because right, we saw quite a few final versions of that scenario for that budget. But if I wanted to compare last year's versus this year, I can do that, and I can have additional columns here that represent data for each year. And again, it's one of those things where if you keep on using the same scenario, okay, as long as you're just changing the dates here, you're always going to be updated. It's always going to work for you. So think about how those scenarios might work for you so that you can create some of these financial statements, including what I mentioned earlier, like the budget modifications. I'm working with a client right now where they like to show their budget. Every financial statement has the board approved budget in one column, and then they've got their actuals and budget to actuals. Then they'll also have another column, which they would call, modification 1 or revision 1 or 2, so that you can see that, all right, well, I see where your actuals are, I see where the boards are. You can compare and contrast any one of the columns within the report. So you can always see where you are, why you're over on certain and under on others. And again, have that opportunity to include notes so that everyone's getting an explanation about this. And you're just giving them the information. It's all there for you. So this is a great tool that allows you to kind of manage those budgets and keep track of them in a way that isn't really tedious. You don't have to keep going in there and keep dumping data into Excel and manipulating it. It's all there. If you create these reports, they're always going to be there for you. And the dates, as long as you keep on get creative with how you use these dates, there's very little that you'll have to do. And anytime something's due, you can feel confident that press a button and those things come out. And I'm always saying the same thing about view only licenses, because I really believe in those. When I had Financial Edge, I had full, anybody could look at my system. I mean, you can't touch it, you can't make any changes, but I want people to be able to see things and go in there and make decisions, so that you're not coming to me and asking me every day, like, what's this, where am I at, or what's this number, what's that number? No. I would rather train you a little bit, give you access to the system, view only. You can look in there. You can answer as many questions as you can for yourself. And if there is something that goes above and beyond that, then let's set up a call and talk. Okay, it's about giving them that information. And overall, Financial Edge, to me, that I love that feature about it, because I don't want to sit there and answer questions all day. I've got a lot of work to do. I would rather you go in there, look around and be responsible for that stuff, and not have to wait until next month when I do my financials, my closings, if you will, to make sure that everything gets included. This is all real time. All this stuff can be accessed in real time, and people can get answers to questions pretty immediately. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes for questions. If there aren't any, then we can wrap up. But I do want to say, because there are a few people that came in late. I just said in the beginning that if you feel comfortable in the chat, go ahead and put your name, the company you're with, and your email, just as an opportunity to meet other people. Because what I said earlier was that we're all in the same boat here. We don't always have people that we can talk with, like someone even like myself, which you do have access to now. But just as for yourself, for you building your own network, is write down the names of the people who are willing to share, so that you can start a networking, become friends, and start talking about some of the stuff that you do. There's a lot of things that you could learn from the way other people are doing certain things.